I still remember the exact moment I met him. It was one of those humid summer evenings where the air feels heavy and restless, like something is about to happen. I was at a friend's backyard barbecue, holding a plastic cup of lemonade and doing my best to smile through the usual small talk. That's when I saw him, across the yard, leaning casually against the fence, laughing at something someone had said. He wasn't the most handsome man I'd ever seen, not in the conventional sense, but there was something about him that made my chest tighten. It was in the way he listened, the way his eyes locked on whoever was speaking like they were the only person in the world at that moment. I didn't mean to notice him that much. I certainly didn't mean to keep glancing over. But every time I caught his eye, it felt like we were sharing some unspoken understanding. I tried to ignore it. I had a husband at home, steady, reliable, and safe. We'd been married for 8 years. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was stable, and stability was something I used to think I valued above all else. Until that night. When we finally spoke, it was over something trivial, the potato salad. I made a joke about how I didn't trust anything sitting in the sun that long. He laughed, and it wasn't forced or polite. It was warm and genuine. Somehow, our conversation didn't feel like two strangers meeting for the first time. It felt like we were picking up where we'd left off. I told myself it was harmless. Just talking. Just a little connection. But I thought about him that night. And the next day. And the day after that. A week later, I accidentally ran into him again. At the coffee shop near my office. He claimed he was just passing through. But I noticed the way his eyes lit up when he saw me, as though he'd been hoping I'd be there. We sat down together, coffee cups warming our hands, and the minutes slipped away faster than I wanted. I told him about my work, my hobbies, even silly childhood stories. He told me about his travels, his family, the way he loved quiet mornings before the world woke up. It was never supposed to go further than that. But I started rearranging my schedule just to see him. Lunch breaks turned into lingering afternoons. Text messages started to fill the spaces my husband's words no longer reached. We never crossed any lines I could point to. Not at first. But the emotional lines. Those had been crossed long before I admitted it to myself. One afternoon it happened. A rainy Tuesday, the kind where the clouds feel low enough to touch. I had stayed late at work, and he offered to walk me to my car. We stood there, sheltered under a narrow awning, the rain pouring down around us. I remember the smell of his cologne mixed with the damp air. His hand brushed mine, light, almost accidental, and my breath caught in my throat. I should have stepped back. I should have said something to break the moment. But I didn't. I stood there, letting the world around us blur and fade. When his fingers finally wrapped around mine, it was like the last barrier between us dissolved. I knew deep down I was in trouble. That night, I lay beside my husband while he slept, staring at the ceiling, feeling the guilt seep into my bones. I told myself it wasn't really cheating. But I also knew I was lying. Because cheating isn't just about physical acts. It's about where your heart and mind choose to go when they're supposed to belong to someone else. It didn't take long for the secrecy to start eating at me. Every time I checked my phone, I worried my husband would notice the way my face lit up at a new message. Every time I left the house, I rehearsed excuses in my head. The worst part was, I still loved my husband in many ways. But with him, everything had become routine. With this other man, everything felt alive. I thought I could balance both worlds. I thought I could keep the rush without destroying my marriage. But temptation is never something you can keep neatly contained. The breaking point came when my husband found a note in my purse. Nothing incriminating, just a scrap of paper with a quote he didn't recognize and a smiley face at the end. He asked who it was from. My mouth went dry, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Delight. I told him it was from a coworker, a joke from a team meeting. He didn't press further, but the way he looked at me told me he didn't fully believe it. That night, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror for what felt like hours. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. She had lines on her face from carrying too many secrets. Her eyes looked tired, even when she smiled. I wish I could say I ended it cleanly, that I made a noble choice. But the truth is, it fizzled out rather than stopped. The messages became less frequent, the meetings more strained. Eventually we both stopped trying. I told myself it was for the best, but the quiet left behind felt heavier than I expected. Now, years later, I still think about him sometimes. About that humid summer night, the potato salad joke, the way the rain sounded as we stood too close. I think about the version of myself who couldn't walk away, even when she knew she should. If I've learned anything, it's that temptation doesn't always announce itself with a warning. Sometimes it slips in quietly, wearing a friendly smile and holding a cup of coffee. And by the time you realize the danger, you've already stepped too far into the storm.